The mainline calendar is undergoing constant change, with rescheduling and cancellations becoming the norm. Amid all the uncertainty, Steam has managed to break new ground with yet another first in the form of a run to Hastings by 777 Salamio. This is Steam Video Issue 20, the video magazine for the steam enthusiast. In this issue, news with comprehensive coverage from both the mainline and preserved network. Third Rail Steam, coverage from a year when Southern Steam continues to break new territory and extend the limits of what was once thought impossible on these electrified lines. The West Somerset holds the distinction of being our longest preserved railway. Ron White takes a look at a line with a checkered career. Anglian Trio, 3 preserved railways recreating the steamwork branch in the eastern counties. And finally, Steam Showcase, the finest steam photography from the country's leading steam cameramen. Steam has returned to the Midland Main Line for the first time since regular running finished in 1964. Black 5 44767 operated a days-out charter from Stockport to St Pancras. The special heads south under the catenary of the slow lines within a minute of its schedule. A month later, the same locomotive hauled a northbound run from St Pancras to Crewe. In contrast to the earlier trip, this was some 60 minutes behind schedule due to the late arrival of the stock. It was routed via the slow lines as far as Harpenden and the freight-only lines through Hendon due to limited bridge clearances. Loadings were surprisingly light, with just 200 passengers, thus representing a loss for its operator, Days Out Limited. This was one of the few specials to escape the steam bans imposed due to the dry conditions in mid-April. Highlight was an impressive ascent of the 1 in 119 5-mile climb to the summit at Sharnbrook. This was achieved at speeds approaching 60 miles per hour. From one return of steam to another, this time on a very different railway. A hot and sunny 6th of May saw Ditcott's 1400-044 tank in action on the 3-mile branch from Chinnor in the shadow of the Chiltern Hills. This was the first steam-hauled passenger train to work the line since the Watlington branch closed in July 1957. Run-round facilities have yet to be added at either end of the line, so a diesel pilot was required. The line presently terminates short of Prince's Risborough, although there are plans to extend into the station in the future. The Severn Valley Railway's Prairie Tank number 4566 is on loan to the Gloucestershire and Warwickshire Railway for the season and was in action during the line's spring gala. The date is the 8th of May, and the 262 leaves the newly installed passing loop at Winchfield with a service for Far Stanley. Another loco on loan is the East Lancs Odney Manor. 7828 is due to stay in the West Somerset for a year. However, we understand this may become a permanent arrangement. Certainly the 460 looks more at home here than among the mills and chimneys of Lancashire. The manor is seen in action during the line's gala of the 7th of May 1995. Also in action on this day was the demonstration freight powered by BR liveried Prairie number 4160. This loco entered traffic in 1994. From one gala to another earlier in the season. The Severn Valley held its usual spring gala over the weekend of the 8th and 9th of April. Unlike the 1994 event, this had no visiting locomotives, although the railway's Ginty 47383 was back in action after overhaul. Despite the lack of visiting power, the motive power fleet was still varied. The Severn Valley's Crab climbs Erdington Bank. Moving to the Swanage Railway, work on the extension to Norden continues. The spring has seen track laying progressing to within a quarter of a mile of the BR tracks at Fursbrook. A precast concrete platform from Newton Abbot awaits installation at Norden. Trains are scheduled to start in August, but this deadline now looks unlikely. On the existing section to Harmon's Cross, 34072 is in action with its newly built tender. This consists of new frames but incorporates the original tank from Merchant Navy Shore Savo line. The date is the 26th of March, 1995. Early May saw hot and sunny conditions descend over the country, together with the usual steam bans due to fire risks. Over the VE bank holiday, the extensive schedule of mainline running was reduced to just one. Duke of Gloucester hauled Hertfordshire Rail Tour's Ynys Mons Express along the North Wales coast. In 80 degrees temperature, the Duke returns to Crewe on the first of just 4 return trips to Holyhead, scheduled for steam this summer. The previous month, the dry conditions resulted in further problems for mainline steam. 6007 was down for days out charter from Stockport to Newcastle. Unfortunately, the A4 set fire to line-side vegetation and signalling cable between Derby and Sheffield. The crew were asked to take it easy on the section to York, where arrival was 60 minutes late. To the dismay of everyone, a diesel pilot was attached for the remainder of the run to Newcastle. As a consequence of the day's events, Railtrack North East imposed a ban on steam traction between Derby and Leeds and from Leeds to Skipton. The A4 was to work further north along the East Coast Main Line 3 weeks later with another days out charter from Newcastle to Edinburgh and the Forth Bridge. With ideal conditions and the splendor of the East Coast ahead, this promised to be a fine run. Unfortunately, 6007 was once again to be dogged by bad luck. At Berwick Station, the crew discovered that the trailing bogie was running hot and could not be replaced in time. Once again, a Class 47 came to the rescue, working the remainder of the trip. A VIP charter from Carlisle to Liverpool was run to mark the end of BR and its charter train unit. The following day, appropriately the 1st of April, new arrangements would come into force with the resultant uncertainty and bureaucracy. Haulage was in the form of Britannia paired with Standard 4 75017 on its first revenue-earning run. After the Settle and Carlisle, the Special headed south on the West Coast main line to Wigan, where it ran via St Helens to Liverpool. The Standard 4 had, incidentally, suffered mechanical failure earlier in the journey, and 70,000 was left to do all the work. Liverpool was reached 60 minutes late. The pair were to work further south a week later, hauling a Waterman Railways charter over the north and west route and through the Severn Tunnel to Exeter. Once again, line-side fires were to mar a main-line special. The high fire risk also led to the cancellation of the Cornish steam runs scheduled for Easter. By way of compensation, the pair worked from Plymouth to Paddington in late April. The duo tackled the formidable 1 in 42 of Helmerdon Bank on the exit from Plymouth in fine style. This was, incidentally, the first steam over this main line for 10 years. Note the blatant example of trespassing to the left of the line. As the light fades, the Special heads east along the Berks and Hants. May saw the long-awaited run of 71,000 Duke of Gloucester down the East Coast main line to King's Cross. Postponed from earlier in the year due to clearance problems, this was operated by Days Out Limited. A few days later, the loco returned north. The same weekend, 35028 Clan Line was due to operate the Royal Wessex from Didcot to Weymouth. In the event, this was steam-powered only as far as Yeovil, where diesel haulage took the train on to Weymouth. Steam came on again at Yeovil for the return run. To many, the last memories of mainline steam came from the now familiar lines from Waterloo to Woking and Basingstoke. The mix of third rail, bullied Pacifics and standard designs was captured in countless photographs. 3 decades later, steam on third rail routes is once again a regular sight. 1994 has seen operations expand to the south coast at Worthing and Littlehampton. Woking has become the centre of workings to Waterloo and Guildford. Recent weeks have seen steam return to Eastbourne, Hastings and the main line north to Tunbridge. We start with Woking and the extensive period of steam running from Friday the 24th to Sunday the 26th of March, marking the Woking Borough Council's centenary celebrations. Swanage-based M7, number 30053, was based here over this period. On the Sunday, the loco made 3 circuits of the Woking to Aldershot and Guildford triangle. The first departure of the day leaves Woking and heads west along the former London and South Western main line towards Basingstoke. Guildford has changed considerably since the end of steam in the 1960s. The M7 runs round in front of huge crowds on the station and nearby footbridge. The triangular route and lack of turning facilities meant that considerable tender first running was needed. Merchant Navy 35028 Clan Line was involved in mainline running on Friday the 23rd of March from Waterloo to Salisbury and on Sunday the 25th from Woking to Portsmouth. Sadly, line-side trespass was in evidence and the third rail had to be isolated, causing delays to several services. 35028 was 30 minutes late at this point. 3077 has been active on southern metals. On the 1st of April, it worked the Southern Mariner from Waterloo to Southampton Docks and Portsmouth. Later, S15 number 828 would join the King Arthur. For many, the highlight of the spring's activity on the Southern was the first steam for 30 years to the south coast at Eastbourne and Hastings. The 1066 Limited started from Victoria, and the first stage took Sir Lamiel to Lewes and Eastbourne. At Eastbourne, the stock was hauled by an electro-diesel along the coast to Hastings, and Sir Lamiel followed light engine. Later that afternoon, and exactly on time, the train returned to Victoria via Tunbridge and Redhill. In steam days, expresses on this line were handled by schools class 440s due to the narrowness of Mountfield Tunnel. In the intervening years, the tunnel has been widened, allowing the first ever visit of a King Arthur. Yet another first for southern steam in the preservation era has been accomplished. East Anglia was one of the first areas to displace steam. By the early 1960s, a clutch of enthusiast specials marked the last rites of numerous classes and lines. Over 30 years later, various lines and railway centres recreate the East Anglian steam scene. In this feature, we look at 3 lines. The Colne Valley Railway at Castle Hedingham, the nearby East Anglian Railway Museum at Chapel and Wakes Colne, and the North Norfolk Railway running from Sheringham to Holt. This delightful railway runs through the low hills bordering the coast with the North Sea as its backdrop. 1995 has seen the railway in the limelight with the long-awaited return to steam of the B12. The locomotive has been in preservation for some 30 years, although many thought it would never steam again. During its first season in traffic, the B12 approaches Weybourne with a train for Holt. The B12s had been used in their final years in East Anglia on local passenger, parcels and excursion traffic. Sister engine 61577 is seen at Cambridge on an enthusiast special. Withdrawal of the class continued through the 1950s, and by December 1959 only 61572 was to remain in traffic. The loco was withdrawn in September 1961, and by 1967 was at Sheringham Station awaiting restoration. That process was long and painful. It was eventually sent to East Germany, where the process of restoration to working order was completed and repatriated in December of last year. This sole surviving inside cylinder 460 was launched into traffic on the 3rd of March 1995, but mechanical problems delayed its full return to revenue-earning service later that month. By Easter, the B12 was settling in on the 5-mile line. The B12s were allocated throughout East Anglia, including Cambridge, Ipswich, Norwich and Yarmouth Beach. This example was based at Norwich Depot in its later years, and it's not inconceivable that it worked on this line, which was part of the Midland and Great Northerns network. The Muddle and Go Nowhere, as it was affectionately known, was closed to traffic in 1959, 2 years before the loco was withdrawn from service. The line from Sheringham to Holt and Melton Constable survived another 5 years, albeit for a local DMU service only. Beyond Weybourne, the line begins the stiff ascent to Holt through Kelling Heath. From the North Norfolk to the East Anglian Railway Museum at Chapel and Wakes Cone. Located alongside the BR branch from Marks Tey to Sudbury, this was established in 1968 when the Star Valley Railway moved in. In 1986, it became the East Anglian Railway Museum. In 1991, the site was bought outright from BR. Until that date, it had been leased. Essentially a museum, steamings are held on summer weekends and occasional Sundays. The centre's N7 is currently undergoing overhaul and, when completed, will perform on the North Norfolk Railway. Also in the workshops is ex-Barry Standard 264 tank number 80151. Sir Berkeley was built in 1890 by Manning Wardle. This 060 saddle tank is on loan from the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. It's approaching from Chapel Viaduct. There are plans to extend the line over this, running alongside the existing BR tracks. The Colne Valley Railway is based at Castle Hedingham, on the former branch from Chapel to Halstead and Haverhill, which was closed to passenger traffic in January 1962. This thriving railway runs as far as Nunney Junction, 1 mile distant. Terry Brooks, chairman of the Colne Valley Railway Preservation Society, explains.
In 1972, the Colne Valley Railway Company Limited purchased a 1 mile section of the original railway, and work commenced in 1974 when the Preservation Society was formed. The work included moving buildings, stations, signal boxes, etc. from other sites and rebuilding them on site here. The land that we took over was, to all intents and purposes, a greenfield site.
The The main features are the former buildings from Castle Hedingham station. Once situated 2 miles beyond, they were moved brick by brick to their present position. The station faithfully recreates the branch of old. Castle Hedingham signal box came from Cressing on the branch to Braintree and was moved here in the 1980s. Displaced by electrification, the footbridge came from Stowmarket. At the other end of the line is Nunney Junction box. This came from Rabness on the Harwich branch. WD number 190 approaches the box and run-round loop. An ex-War Department loco, this was built to an austerity 060 design. Although ordered during the Second World War, it was constructed in 1952 and spent its entire life with the Royal Engineers, serving at Long Martin, Bicester and latterly Shoebury-Ness. The Colne Valley Railway will eventually be extended to Halstead, 2 miles away, and there are plans to develop the site into a major attraction. Together with the neighbouring preserved railways, the Colne Valley maintains the tradition of the steam-worked East Anglian branch.
It's a transitional scene at Willerton. This could be the mid-60s. Steam on one side, DMU on the other side. A Craven's 2-car Type 105 coming in. 4160 on the train for Minehead. This is the West Somerset Railway, providing on its winter service variety and interest and a genuine memory of the 60s. No.20 is one of the latest recruits to the restoration scene. One of the Great Western large 262s, built just after the war. Looks absolutely magnificent in BR line black. So rarely did one see a large prairie in this condition. Great Western purists will complain, of course, that it's not in GWR colours. Great Western purists always complain about this. But the BR line black livery suited most locomotives extremely well. And on this nice crisp morning at Minehead, this really is a treat. And we can look forward to this wandering through the Somerset Hills towards Bishop's Lydiard. The Somerset and Dorset 280 was Everybody's favourite locomotive when working on the Somerset and Dorset. The woolly roar it made was a very familiar sound. The groaning noises from the pistons when running downhill were equally characteristic, but mechanically much less pleasant. This particular loco was built by contractors, Robert Stevenson, in Darlington in 1925 to the original Midland design. This was one of the 3 locos built with a larger boiler, the G9.5 boiler, and subsequently the loco was rebuilt with a standard G9 boiler of lesser diameter, which necessitated a built-up smokebox saddle and distance pieces being put in, and these show up very clearly on this loco. The Midland origins of this loco have provided the restorers with the usual problems, the gravely inadequate Midland axle boxes. And the Walschaerts valve gear comes from the early Paleolithic period. There is always an immense whirring of rods, but the actual movement of the valves is very, very small indeed. Short travel valves give good pulling power, but do not enable the loco to run at all freely. And when this and its sister were on mainline service, 50 miles an hour was really about all they wanted before trouble set in. The goods shed at Minehead is now the loco depot, and this is where repairs are carried out. This all looks fairly frightful at the moment, but it's nothing serious. It's a replacement of the left-hand cylinder cover joint. One of those delightful little tasks which have to be done on regular intervals. Odney Manor has been on various railways in its time, on the Llangollen, on the Gwylly Railway. Now, the West Somerset are going to enjoy it for a few months once these odd jobs are done. In the old days, we wouldn't have seen steam locomotives parked on this side of the line. The shed was over on the far side. But it is nice to see them here with the background of North Hill, always the most attractive feature of Minehead. The Collet 060 is having a boiler refit. It's a very appropriate loco to be on this line. It was one of the very first locos to go into preservation. It was bought in the 60s to go to the embryonic Dart Valley Railway. It spent time on the Severn Valley, and it's now come to what I suppose is really its rightful home, because the Collets in the 30s and 40s were staple power on this branch, along with the small prairies. Taunton had about a dozen 262s on its books during the 30s, 40s and 50s, and it wasn't even until the late 50s that the last of the Great Western locos was replaced by the standard 82,000 series Class 2 tanks. Minehead Station, the end of the line. It's a little bit anticlimactic, this final run in from Blue Anchor along the flats of marshes through Dunster Station and into this terminus here. A very, very long island platform, extended in 1934 when the Great Western Railway got round to spending a few £1,000s on the branch. Through trains on Saturdays to Paddington ran up to 11 or 12 coaches, and there was also a Saturday train to and from Wolverhampton. The area has changed a bit. Over here were additional sidings, now of course devoted to a car park. Right down at the back was a little locomotive shed and turntable. Nowadays the locomotive department has to use the old goods shed, and a modern carriage shed has been built for repair work. Behind us though, the slopes of North Hill and the town remain much as they have been for the last 100 years. This was essentially a Victorian watering place and hasn't changed much at all. In the old days, Blue Anchor was the last block section. It was here that the tablet for Kentsford to Blue Anchor was given up. And from now on, it was double track down through Dunster to Minehead, steeply downhill from here till sea level was reached, and then along the marshy flats to Minehead. Washford Station, in the days of the Minehead branch, was not one of the more significant places on the line. It was the summit of the climb, both from Watchet and from Blue Anchor. There was a certain amount of cattle traffic to and from the station, but really it was insignificant. Now, under the preservation scheme, it's assumed a completely new importance because of the time with the Somerset and Dorset Trust, who, when they lost their home on their own railway, came to rest here at Washford. And the signal box here has been turned into a replica of Midford. It is a pure Somerset and Dorset box, and Somerset and Dorset artefacts have been brought here from all over. I don't think actually too many of them are from Midford itself, but they are all from genuine Somerset and Dorset boxes. And the box is a little treasure house of polished brass. It really is worth a look inside. Watchet Station, an awkward little place. Reverse curves, steep gradient. But Watchet was the raison d'etre of the building of the line in 1862. The original West Somerset Railway, run by the Bristol and Exeter, built broad gauge, opened as far as here in 1862. Crowcombe Station, the passing loop's been reinstated, but they're not using it at the moment. What a lovely lordly snap to the exhaust at 4160 as it comes over the crest and then proceeds to coast away down the long bank towards Sturgumber. Bishop's Lydiard, effectively the southern terminus of the West Somerset Railway. Beyond the bridge, you can see the line instantly start the long wallop up to Crowcombe. South of here, the connection to British Railways at Norton Fitzwarren is maintained. The line has permission to run through trains from BR through to Minehead. This is a very grudging concession obtained in the last year, as a result of which very serious thoughts are now being given to putting together a station jointly with British Railways at Norton Fitzwarren. The West Somerset Railway is already a long line to work, but if it were that bit longer, if it were connected to Taunton, my word, wouldn't it put it in premier position amongst the privately owned lines?
Summer steam. 71,000 Duke of Gloucester emerges from the Dorgan tunnels into 80-degree temperatures with the Innis-Mon Express. In contrast comes Clan Line on a winter's day, its exhaust hanging in the cold, still air. 35028 is working from Waterloo to Portsmouth. Another cold winter's morning as the Bluebells 9F number 92240 shuffles up grade from Sheffield Park. "6024 King Edward I is en route for Paynton as it storms away from Didcot after a water stop. Now, it's maximum clag on the Southern, as 777 Sir Lemuel departs Tunbridge for Redhill. Night steam can produce some distinctive, almost surreal effects. 75014 and Britannia are en route for Paddington.